This, a lot of people miss it. It's the voice of burdens. Burdens is the Lord communicating to you by the emotions of the Spirit. So it's not a witness. It's almost like a witness, but it's not a witness. It's not a still small voice. It's a very strong emotion that coming from your spirit, and the emotion so takes you over that you feel you are in it. A burden is an overwhelming emotion coming from the Spirit of God. So sometimes you can feel a burden and think it's you. It says, Zechariah chapter 9 verse 1, the burden of the word of the Lord against the land of Hadariah and Damascus is resting place. For the eyes of men and all the tribes of Israel are on the Lord. Okay, continue. Malachi 1:1, the burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. So God gave the prophet not a vision. He gave him a burden. Now, why is it called a burden? Because the emotion makes you feel heavy. It feels like you're carrying something heavy. It weighs you down. But it's a spiritual burden. It's how I woke up one day and I had a burden that my dad's life was in danger. And I felt danger. And I prayed for about 2 hours until the burden left. On that day, a stray bullet almost cut his head off. My prayers prevented it. What happened? God didn't speak a voice to me. He didn't reveal a vision to me. He gave me a burden. So you could wake up and all of a sudden, you just feel that your young son is in danger. You just feel like you're hearing news of an accident. It's like you just have a feeling, I'm going to hear bad news about my son. That's a burden. And burdens usually are activated when it comes to wrong things, canceling wrong things. So burdens. So you can just get a burden. You're like, where did this come from? Like I remember I sat next to a lady one day, and I was in St. Lucia. As I sat next to her in the car, I just felt depressed. I said, what's this? And I said, I'm not depressed. That time I was actually learning burdens. I'm not depressed. I said, Holy Ghost, exactly what's happening. And the still small voice said, you just have a burden. She is in depression right now. So I spoke to her. I said, as I sat next to you, I just felt a depression. She said, yes, I'm depressed. I am taking medication for depression. And I ministered to her, and she got set free by the power of God, and then the burden lifted. So that was a burden that I picked up on her. But I can have a burden about a situation that pertains to me. Now this is what happens to burdens. When Jesus was going to be crucified, Peter, James, and John all had burdens. Okay, but guess what they did with the burdens? They slept. Because burdens make you heavy, many times instead of praying, you sleep. They say, I just feel funny, I feel heavy, I feel this. But you're feeling something because when you feel burdens, it's because there's a dark force in the spirit realm that you have to deal with. And you feel the heaviness of it. And you feel how your emotion will react to it. And then you say, well, right now, I'm just going to watch Netflix and slip this burden away. Then what you had a burden about happens. And it moves now from a burden to real life. Jesus. Oh, my Lord. Burdens. Nehemiah built what he did Not by Nehemiah did not hear any voice. Say, arise, Nehemiah, go and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. All he heard was what? He received a burden. When he heard what happened, he began to weep and cry. He had a burden. So some of you, you may have a burden. Say, I have a burden for decorating the church. I have a burden for the church moving to another place. I have a big, so it's like I don't feel good because God is communicating to you by what? A burden. So you don't need to hear, thus saith the Lord, arise, my daughter. No, it's communicated by a burden. There's some people I just feel a burden to help. It's like if I don't help them, the food that I'm eating doesn't taste good. So I have to help them. Then after I help them, the food begins to taste its normal taste. Because it's a burden. Are you with me? You see, in a burden, God interrupts your enjoyment of life to fix something immediately or to attend to something immediately. Because if you try to enjoy life with burdens, believe you me, nothing is sweet when those burdens are on you. I tell you, I'm just telling you. When the burden hits you, I'm just telling you. You have a burden, it hits you, it's like you got to respond to this burden because burdens are usually emergencies in the spirit. So a burden is a 911. Oh boy, you're not hearing me. Burdens are 911. That's why they interrupt you. They interrupt your day. They interrupt what you're doing. They're important in the realm of the spirit. So if God communicates with you with a burden, that means it's an urgent matter.